into all that, I think it's important for my listeners to find out exactly who you two ladies are. So I'm going to start with you, Stephanie. Stephanie Sena is the founder of what is called Surrey HUP. Well, it's not called Surrey HUP, but it is called Surrey HUP. It's what you refer to it as. But tell me, what does that mean, Stephanie?
So Surrey HUP stands for Student Run Emergency Housing Unit of Philadelphia. It's a long name. We're actually right now trying to come up with a new name because people can't remember that one. And the people who picked the first name actually were our lawyers.
And the funny thing is, I always stop with housing because I always forget
Which
Unit
is fine.
of Philadelphia.
Yeah. And actually, I'm gonna give your listeners a little bit of information that very few people know. So the reason that we are called Surrey HUP, and this long whole name that's hard to remember, is that homeless shelters, and that's what we were meant to be. We started off as an initiative of college students throughout the region of Philadelphia running homeless shelters in church basements. And I want to give you just a little bit background on why we did that. But homeless shelters are actually not really legal in Philadelphia or throughout the country. So there's a lot of zoning code against them. So for example, in Philadelphia and in many regions throughout the country, like in Boston, you can't have a homeless shelter if you don't have, you have to have a parking spot for every person sleeping at the homeless shelter in order to have a homeless shelter.
You do?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Which is obviously ridiculous because a lot of people, especially in the city who are homeless, don't have cars.
Right.
And also homeless shelters that are in the city, you can't have the parking spots.
Where would they find something like that?
Exactly. So, but the point is they're made to make it, really difficult to have a homeless shelter because of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Neighbors don't want homeless shelters in their backyard. So the rules are on purpose made to be, challenging to create them. So our lawyers picked this name, Student Run Emergency Housing Unit of Philadelphia, because no one knows what that means. They picked it on purpose to be confusing.
Because it's sort of vague.
It's vague,
like, what
and
does
so
that really mean?
the lawyers thought no one will fight against it if they don't know what it means.
Oh my gosh, you have smart lawyers.
Yeah,
I might need their names in case I ever get in trouble for anything.
I know. But so that's the crazy story about our name. But
thank you for sharing that.
I'm glad to. In 2011, we opened because it coincided with shelters throughout Philadelphia and the country were being defunded starting in 2008 because of some policy changes. And so one of the biggest shelters in Philadelphia, which was Ridge Shelter, had over 300 beds.
Right.
It closed in 2011. And so we knew there was going to be a shortage of needed beds in the city. And at the same time, I heard about a shelter in Boston that was run by college students. And I'm a college professor. I teach in the department called the Center for Peace and Justice at Villanova University. And I'm a big advocate of teaching my students outside of the classroom. I feel like, especially at Villanova. So there's these students at Villanova. It's a very wealthy school. It's one of the most expensive universities in the country to attend.
That's why I probably didn't go there.
Yep. I went there for my first master's degree, but I had a scholarship, so I didn't have to pay for it.
Nice. Your first master's degree.
My first master's degree.
How many master's degrees do you have, Stephanie?
Only have two.
Only have two, as I have a Bachelor of Science in English.
Well, that's something to sneeze at. But my Villanova students were coming from predominantly private Catholic suburban high schools and now going to a private Catholic suburban university, and were not exposed to people really outside of their little bubble. So I could talk all I wanted until I was blue in the face about poverty and injustice, but it was so divorced from the reality of my students. And so I was a big fan of getting them out of the classroom and teaching them by getting them to be what's called proximal or close to people who are really their neighbors. Villanova is a suburban school, but it's a Philadelphia school. And I think that the universities owe it to their communities to be involved.
Absolutely.
And so but I feel like our country's so divided, based on race and class and all these demographics. And I feel like if we're going to make any change, it starts by bringing people together and exposing them to others who they ordinarily wouldn't be exposed to. And maybe because of that, they might have the propensity to stereotype or to be prejudiced
Absolutely.
against these people. So I wanted to get them out of the classroom. I heard about this shelter in Boston run by college students. I said, that's amazing. I took, in 2011, 20 of my Villanova students out to Boston for the week to visit this shelter in Boston.
20 students to Boston?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And many of them are still involved in the project, in this shelter project in Philadelphia. But we went there and we stayed in the shelter for a week to see how it operated. We fell in love with it. And at the end of the week, I took my students to a little coffee shop in Boston. And I said, you want to do this in Philly? And they said, hell yes.
Right on. Of course they would. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we came back to
20 of them,
Philadelphia. Yeah.
20 at an affluent college.
Yeah.
Went up there. They got to see really how the other half lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of just put that little seed in their mind and it grew and there was something about it. It touched them.
It did, but it didn't just touch them. It touched students throughout the entire Philadelphia region. So pretty quickly, other universities started to call and say, we want to be involved. And so we started building chapters at Penn and Drexel and Temple and Swarthmore, all the local universities, which we have now, chapters at all these schools.
So Surrey HUP isn't just local to Villanova. It's local in
Correct.
Philly to all the other schools.
All the other universities.
That's
yes.
amazing. That's
yes.
amazing.
And then we opened our doors for the first year on November 11, 2011, and we've been operating ever since. And so we would take these individuals in who were experiencing homelessness. We would partner with other amazing organizations like Project Home and work with case managers who would link them to services that they need. And then we would try to get them housing by the time we closed. Every year it was November to April. And by the time we closed in April, our goal was to move people on into housing. And we had a pretty high success rate of doing that for years.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And in my mind, I'm clicking like, wow, 11, 11, 11. And what a great little, mantra or way to remember that.
Yeah.
But so you actually open their eyes, open their minds, and more so open their hearts to what's happening out there with the homelessness.
That's right.
Because I think so many people, tend to look at like homelessness as being, not their problem.
That's right.
It's not my issue. I mean, people that are, experiencing homelessness, they become almost invisible to those who don't understand it.
Well, that's right. It's exactly right, Britt. And so I felt that if we could bring these students who are closer to the seat of power than maybe those who are suffering on the streets, my Villanova students especially, and certainly students at Penn and Swarthmore, these are students who will graduate and they will go on to, lead companies and corporations or potentially, become lawyers or judges or work in, legislation. And I wanted to catch them right before that so that I could expose them to people and get them to have some empathy and potentially rethink what their plan was for after college. And maybe go into instead of going to work for Goldman Sachs, maybe instead go to work to really change these systems of injustice and inequality that are facing our country today.
That's so awesome. I just got sort of like chills when you were talking like that. It's like, wow, you sold me. I want to be in your classroom.
I love it. Well, Jocelyn is in my classroom.
And Jocelyn, so you're a student at Villanova.
Yeah.
So Jocelyn Griffith.
Yes.
All right. No N, no S. It's Griffith.
Just one.
Yeah. So Jocelyn, how did you get involved with Stephanie here and Surrey HUP? I mean, you're in her classroom, but I mean, what made you interested in Surrey HUP?
Well, I had a friend from high school. I'm going to shout out Luke Stavala.
Hey, Luke.
And he was in Professor Sena's class, and he was always telling me, like, the Tree HUP was an awesome organization, and I should take her class because she's, like, an awesome, amazing person.
And she is.
And, yeah. And so I wanted to take the class, and I knew that when I was taking the class, I wanted to get more involved with Tree HUP because I felt like I could be doing more for the community because I'm like exactly the student that Professor Sena is describing. Like I went to a Catholic high school. I came from like a privileged home, and yet I live in between Trenton and Camden.
Ooh.
And near Philly.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of like poverty like surrounding me, but I like had no idea, and it was kind of a shock like learning all the poverty that exists so close to me that I hadn't seen like growing up.
Wow. So basically this really like was something that you thought to yourself, you want to be able to grow and evolve as a person. And in order to do so, step outside that comfort zone, outside that bubble.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you first did that? Or
it was really exciting because in high school I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer, but I kind of felt like a calling, like I wanted to do something for other people. So I went to Villanova because of all the service that they talked about. And then I found all the organizations like Surrey HUP and the professor in the psych department that I work for. She works with homeless infants. And I just love the work so much. Like, whenever I come back from service, I feel so energized, and it's like the funnest part of my week. I
That's
look forward
awesome.
to all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What year are you at Villanova?
I'm a junior.
You're a junior. So when did you get involved with Surrey HUP?
I guess technically I only got involved with Surrey HUP this year.
Okay.
But I had kind of been like working alongside with them in Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week Committee. So we partner closely with Surrey HUP and do a lot of like fundraisers together and stuff.
So Villanova is a very service-oriented college, a university. And I honestly didn't realize that. You know, to hear this coming from you, I didn't realize that. And there's a professor out there that works with homeless infants.
Yeah, she works with infants under 1 year. So we go into shelters and find infants under 1 year, and we're like testing an intervention to help their development and relationship with their mothers.
That's amazing. Yeah. That is so amazing. I actually honestly didn't even think about that existing out there. So you've actually gone into shelters and you've worked with infants less than a year old and their mothers.
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I can't do a lot as an undergrad, so mainly watching the graduate students work, but I spend a lot of time recruiting, so we just sit in common areas at the shelters, and we give out stickers to some of the other kids. And even though we're just sitting there, it's still really fun because a lot of the kids like to talk to us, and some of the parents do, and it's really interesting to talk to people that you normally wouldn't, and like see how other people live, I guess.
Don't sell yourself short saying that, you know, you don't do as much as somebody else does. You show up. Showing up is half the battle. So being able to show up and sit there and do that, there's not many people that do that. I mean, I run a nonprofit, Philly Unknown, and I work with those that are afflicted with homelessness and those in the opioid addiction. And it's interesting because, you know, we get people who show up and they want to check it out and they don't come back for whatever reasons it may be. It may be the fact that it was too much for them. It might have been too much of a sensory overload for them. It could be the fact that it's not what they were expecting. But for you to show up and then they go back, that's doing a lot. So don't sell yourself short. You do a lot. Yeah. And especially if you connect with the residents. I mean, and let me ask you this, because it always amazes me. When the first time you connected with somebody, how did you feel about that? What was that like?
Oh, it's great. I always go back to, I mean, I just think of last year, I was in the service learning community, and I went to a shelter in Norristown, and I remember I connected with a resident, and I think about him a lot, and I like talk about him because he defies all the stereotypes of like what a homeless person would be. And I met him on the first night we went to service, like the first time I'd ever been to a homeless shelter, and that had like a huge impact on me.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what's his name, his first name?
Neil.
Yeah. So Neil had this impact on you because, of course, he was outside of what you expected. And I think that's really important for people to know that, you know, there really isn't a type that is homeless, because somebody who has it all together 1 month, the next month could not be in that position and could be in a homeless state. And it's important for the listeners to hear that, especially coming from somebody like yourself. So, Jocelyn, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Are you nervous?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit? You shouldn't be nervous. You're around Stephanie, myself, Professor Sena, and myself. But that's all right. So, you know, I want to go back, Stephanie. You keep saying shelter. Shelter. What is the difference between a shelter and a rescue?
Oh, that's a good question, and I'm not 100% sure.
Me either.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the difference is. There's so much different terminology, and I know I have to be careful with it because so many of these words are laden with meaning for other people, right? So, you know, there's so much maybe stigma attached to them, and so words matter and are important and in this field that we're in. Right now, though, what we used to do with our shelter is we were literally just sheltering people who had been on the streets, and we would link them to services and try to get them in housing. So this could be considered, you know, temporary housing.
Right. Okay.
Situation, transitional housing, trying to get them from the street to housing. What we're doing right now is a huge shift from what we were originally doing. So we were in church basements for a number of years,
Right.
and in that position, we realized there was a population, a percentage of the population we weren't able to serve. It was people who were homeless with their pets.
Ooh.
And so, because we were in church basements and the churches didn't allow pets in, we had to turn people away when they came to us with pets. And so then what would happen is I would try to find people other resources, and I recognized that there were no resources available. So I saw that this was a gap in the services. And for me, I want to make shelter more accessible and housing more accessible. So what that means is we say we want to be low barrier. So we want to make the barriers to entry into shelter and into housing lower, so more people have access. And so that means taking people with their pets, with their partners, with their property. We say the 3 Ps. And also wheelchair accessible and ADA accessible, because that's also a major barrier for a lot of people who have disability.
Wow, you really covered the full gamut there.
Yeah.
You really put a lot of time, thought, and energy and effort into this.
Well, Britt, I don't think I would have recognized that this was a problem if we hadn't seen it up close every day. So I feel like, for me, I'm an academic, I'm a professor, and I study, and I read voraciously. I'm reading every single night. But, I sit at Villanova University, which in many ways, these elite universities are like ivory towers, and there's a lot of people doing amazing research, but they're divorced from the reality of what they're researching, right? It becomes very clinical.
They're in their own little sphere.
They are. And so for me, I feel very fortunate that I not only have the skills and the interest and the ability to do a ton of research, but I also have the experience. And marrying the experience with the research, you get a very different outcome. So I don't know that if I had not been doing the shelter day in and day out for years, I would have been exposed to or understood what was happening when it comes to people who were homeless with pets. I don't know that was something I had to see and feel, right? So it was the heartache I felt in having to turn people away who had pets or who had a wheelchair and couldn't get downstairs. Seeing that up close and recognizing we have to do better. So really that started the initiative. I said we have to have our own space to house people, and we're going to let them come in with their pets, because what's happening with pets, Britt, is about 25% fully of the population of people are homeless with pets.
Right.
The way that works is that evictions are on the rise throughout the country, and certainly in Philadelphia, because housing prices are increasing, but wages are stagnant. We have other factors, certainly, but that's a big cause of it. And so people who had pets and homes lose their homes, but not their pets.
Right.
So they're thrown out on the street with their pets, and if they want to go into a human shelter, they have to put their pet into a pet shelter. But a lot of our pet shelters, especially ACT, which is the Philadelphia Pet Shelter, are at full capacity.
And you never know what can happen once that pet gets in there, or if they accept them.
That's
and
right.
there's a problem. And I think people have to realize, pets are family.
That's
so
right.
You're giving up a family. And if you're already taking somebody's livelihood and their home away and everything that made them who they were, then you're going to take away the one thing that gives them the most unconditional love. That really has an effect on them. And it's something we're going to talk about when we come back from our break here. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about how Stephanie, myself, and Jocelyn all connected and how this all fits in together. But stick around. This is Britt Carpenter, Be a Voice, and we'll be right back.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Because of you, I feel not alone in this world. And you let me know that it only takes one person to make you feel wanted.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Britt Carpenter of Be a Voice on Usula Radio, and I am sitting here today with Stephanie Sena and Jocelyn Griffith. Hey, ladies.
Hi.
Hi. And, of course, I don't want to forget my shout-out to my man behind the glass there, Dylan. What's up, Dylan? One day we'll get Dylan to come out here and talk, maybe. We'll see about that. What do you think, Dylan? Yeah? Yeah? You'll come out and you'll talk? Love it. What if we got your brother out here to talk? How would that go? Yeah? I thought so. But anyway, for those of you who may just be joining us right now, Stephanie and Jocelyn are both from Villanova University. Stephanie is a professor there, and Jocelyn is a student there. And they are both involved with an organization, a nonprofit that was started called Surrey HUP, which is Student-Run Emergency Housing Unit of Philadelphia, which I finally found that U and the P out. I knew the P was Philadelphia, but I couldn't remember what the U was.
So I have to tell you, Britt, real quickly that, Lucy Noland is a partner on the project.
I love Lucy.
Yeah, we love Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy was a former lead anchor of Fox 29.
Yeah.
She's a force. She's amazing. But when she first learned of the project, and she's been, active on it for 2 years, she said, I have to tell you, you have to change your name because I can't be part of a project with the name Unit. She said, I hate that word unit, and you got to change it immediately.
I think about that stuff, but I don't verbalize it. But that's what I love about Lucy.
Lucy verbalizes
Lucy verbalizes it. And
Yeah.
for those of you who don't know, Lucy is a huge activist in the animal and the rescue community. And she was a powerhouse when she was on Fox 29 as an anchor. And she just really speaks out. So being able to partner with her, Stephanie, that is just double power whammy, and that's amazing. But, there is something really exciting that brings us all together here. And it's something that Stephanie and I had talked about a little over a year ago. And it's something she had told me she was doing. And I said, I need to be a part of that. Not that I want to be a part of that. I need to be a part of that. And I will insert myself in this in any way I can. And we're going to make this happen together. One of those, of course, was with the animals, because you are working closely with Morris Animal Refuge, which I'm on the board of directors for. And I know that, Lewis, who's the executive director there, has gone out to California with you, and you've toured some of the shelters and the out there in California, and it's just amazing. And the whole thing with the animals is amazing because so many people give their animals, and of course, because I prefer animals to people most of the time, that's so close to my heart, because I know that if I ever got in dire needs, my animals would come first. And I don't think I know I would never be able to give them up. I made a pact to them when I rescued them that I was going to be with them until the end. So by you doing this and by you recognizing that one of the reasons that people can't get into a shelter or can't find certain housing when they're in need is because of their pets, that's amazing. It's a breakthrough. Is there anything like this out there other than in California?
No, we really we don't have this throughout the country, but I think starting with these major hurricanes where people were refusing to get help because of their pets and they needed to evacuate, more and more people have started to realize we really need to keep humans and pets together, and we can save them both at the same time.
Yeah, and I speak from my one dog, Jersey. She'll be 15 years of age, but I rescued her when I lived in Florida from Hurricane Katrina. She was found taped up in a box next to a dumpster because the owners left her there as a puppy.
Wow.
Yeah, so I recognize that, and that's so close to my heart. But there is something that that is about to transpire here in Philadelphia, something really exciting, something really positive, and that is, Stephanie, you have brainstormed and manifested this idea for tiny homes, basically, but they're really not tiny homes, are they? But it's going to be a village where those in need or homeless can go and live with their pets.
That's right.
And it's a little community that you have titled what?
The Breaking Bread community.
The Breaking Bread community. I love it. And Jocelyn, before we let Stephanie explain that, how do you come into the Breaking Bread community other than being with Surrey HUP?
So the first day of class, Professor Sena went through all the projects for the final grade, and one of them was a community garden listed. And I remember I ran out of class and I texted my mom. I was like, I know what I'm going to do this semester. I'm going to help like plan and organize a community garden in like this new village that Professor Sena's building. And like I texted her all excited about it. And so now I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome and exciting for me too, because when Stephanie had said, I need to get this garden put in, well, that's right up my alley because my nonprofit started the community healing gardens and the initiatives within the Kensington area. So we were granted one space, and then speaking with Stephanie, she said, well, this is a no-brainer, Britt. We need to work together and bring it in and get another space. So you and I will be working closely on that, which I'm really excited about because your energy and your enthusiasm and your willingness is there. Mm-hmm. What made you interested in that? Why, out of everything, why gardening? Why garden?
Well, last year I got really into houseplants.
Okay.
And I had about 20 in my room because I had a single. So I had no roommate to protest.
Ooh, nice for you.
And so I would just like care for them, and it was like really therapeutic to just like take care of all the plants and stuff. And I had done like research on plants improving quality of life for one of my psych classes, and I was like, plants in a community garden, like that's me, like that's perfect. That's like totally what I'm interested in.
You're speaking my language because I think it's so important for people to realize that there are such therapeutic healing qualities in gardening and dealing with agriculture. There's also, if you look at on the other side, when you're talking about things such as like, raising vegetation and stuff like growing vegetation and stuff like that, that's also helping with food scarcity in the areas as well. So that's very therapeutic. So that's amazing. And I'm so excited to work with you. Hearing you verbalize that right now, right here, I'm like now thrilled. Like you sold me. You sold me when I first met you, but it's solidified now. But I think it's really important for the listeners to know that in order to get this garden up and running, Stephanie had this vision. And this vision, Stephanie, brought you to this Breaking Bread community. And tell us about it.
Well, so originally our first idea was we were going to be in a building. We were looking for abandoned warehouses or schools or churches, and we looked for a really long time. We found a building that was perfect for us, or we thought it was perfect for us. We had a generous donation from Councilman Alan Dom, who's the city council at large, and he was going to purchase this building for us. But we got some pushback from the neighbors.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. Because they don't want it in their backyard.
That's right, NIMBYism. And specifically, the CDC there was a little resistant. And Alan said, let's go somewhere else. We want to be somewhere where the neighbors want us. And so at that time, I was really pretty devastated. Lucy Nolan, she kept calling me on the phone saying, we were just meant for something bigger and better is going to happen. And I just couldn't get out of bed. I cried for days, and I just was so defeated.
You sat in your little cow pajamas.
I did. I sat in my cow pajamas and ate a lot of chocolate and felt really bad for myself, and I didn't answer my phone. But then I saw a video online for tiny homes for people who are homeless out in Eugene, Oregon. And I said, this seems amazing. And I said, I got to go there because I got to see it. I'm the kind of person, I have to feel it and see it and taste it, to understand it. So I booked a trip.
Last
August, I wanted to go with you so badly. And I know you wanted to go, but you got sick right before. But so we went out. I toured the village. I was so inspired. And for me, I've been touring cities throughout the world really to learn best practices because I feel like so many cities, especially in our global economy, are affected by homelessness. It doesn't just affect us in Philadelphia. So I want to tour other cities and see how other cities are managing this because I feel like if we just all collaborate and share best practices, it could make each of us stronger, right? And there's so many possibilities that people are re-envisioning how we operate and how we work together. So I'm inspired by that. I went there, got the chills, loved it. I was more ready than ever to do this in Philly. I posted on Facebook and said, who wants to work on this tiny homes project with me in Philadelphia? And man, it was overwhelming, the support I got. So
You
then
opened the floodgates of
amazing. And then I actually went out to Scotland, Edinburgh, Scotland, twice in the last year, because there's a village of tiny homes out there for people who are homeless. And so I went to see, what they're up to, and it was amazing out there. And so came back and started to work on it. And really, Councilman Mark Squilla had been saying for a couple years, I want you in my district. So then we sat down with the land bank and we looked at land available in his district, and we came up with Port Richmond. But I knew from the first experience that NIMBYism was real and was a threat. And so I thought very carefully about how to do this, and I did it. This was amazing. I went out to the neighbors, and I started going out there every day, and I would go and I would talk to them, and I would meet them, and I would say, really, what do you want for your community, and how can we partner with you to make this happen? Because Jocelyn knows, so I mentioned I teach in the Center for Peace and Justice, and my class is called Poverty and Homelessness in History. And so a lot of students like Jocelyn, maybe they take my class and they come in on the first day and they want to know, how can I make a difference? So I have these students because it's an elective, so I only get the best students at Villanova, the ones who really want to make change.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. I'm so lucky.
Because think about this. What college student wants to take a class that doesn't, that they have to choose themselves, that they have to elect to take, that doesn't interest them.
That's right.
So you get people who really have something
exactly
behind them, or there's some driving force for them to be sitting in that class.
Absolutely.
Love
it. I don't have to convince them to care about other people. On that first day, based on who's sitting in that room, I already know that they do, that they have empathy and they care for things and people outside of themselves, and they're curious. But, Britt, what they might not expect is that the first third of the whole semester, I spend on concepts of like white savior complex, and really this idea that that it's not good enough to just go into a community and as if you're some kind of savior, some kind of white savior, and say, I'm here, thank God we're here to save the day, right? And that, in fact, that has caused a lot of harm throughout the world and has been responsible for systems of inequity.
Well, how dare you come into my community and think you're going to change things without my permission? That's
exactly right. So we spent a whole lot of time talking about that, and also talking about system change. So my course is dedicated to talking to students about the root causes of homelessness, and how we need to work collectively on a policy level, on a legislative level, to end homelessness, and also that these communities, these shelters or the houses we're building, that's not the solution to homelessness. At all. I don't want them to think that we're going in and we're solving it, right? No.
You're just alleviating a little bit of the symptom.
Right. Yes, for some people, but we don't have enough resources to do it for everybody, right? So for me, I feel like, okay, if I want to push the needle in terms of poverty reduction, for me, I feel like there's two ways I can do it. As an individual. And one way is direct service, right? Is going out on the streets and working with people day in and day out. And I want to do that. I want to be on the front lines and work with them. And not because really, maybe I started in 2011 with the idea that I wanted to do good. But the reality is, and I know that you know this, Britt, is that the gifts I received were far greater than any I could hope to give. That I found like these were my people. It's funny because, some people look at me and they want to put me on a pedestal, and they think, some people who don't know me think I'm nice, and they say they think like, oh my goodness, this person,
what a sweetie,
she's such a sweetie, and she doesn't judge the misfits of society, the ones everybody else judges. So she must be the least judgmental human, and I want to say no. I'm judging the rest of you. I only like the people who are on the margins.
Jocelyn, does she like to sit in class?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think she's. that exactly the other day in class.
Did she? I love it. I love it.
I did, but but okay. So if I want to push the needle, I want to do direct service and work with people who are suffering on the streets. But the other thing is that to push the needle it has to do with education and educating the people who are close to the positions of power, right? So the student learning component is also a huge part of homeless reduction. It's not just working with people who are homeless, but people who are not homeless, to change their minds about the reasons of homelessness and how their decisions are contributing to it. That if they go and they work for Goldman Sachs and they support legislation that cuts taxes, that they are themselves part of the problem.
Exactly.
Right?
Not the solution. They're
right,
part of that
exactly.
problem.
So I start the class really with this conceptual stuff about how do we think about poverty and how are we in some ways responsible for it, and how that in some cases, I'm reading a great book right now called Winners Take All: The Elite Charade of Changing the World. That in some cases,
It's a heck of a title. Say it again.
it's called Winners Take All: The Elite Charade of Changing the World. And in essence, what's happened is that the top 1% that controls like 90% of the world's resources, they give back. Right, they feel really good about like creating a foundation or something like that, but it excuses them from actually creating systemic change that's needed to alleviate. But they can feel real good about themselves because I gave some money to charity, or I volunteered at a homeless shelter.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And in some ways, it excuses them from having to do the work. So I tell my students, you're not off the hook.
Right.
Right. That you going into is important. For you and for the people we're serving, but that doesn't leave you off the hook from having to do and grapple with the systems of power and how you are implicated in that, right? So this is the kind of stuff we do in class. It's hard work, but it's important, and it can be uncomfortable.
Well, and I think it's interesting because I think, Jocelyn, you are a testimony to it itself that, she is educating people out there about what's happening, because not just are you taking her class as an elective, you are learning about people, you're learning about yourself, and you're learning about really what's inside of you, right?
Yeah, it's definitely my career goals have been all over the place,
Mine
my
too,
whole
mine
life.
too.
But this semester I've been really focused. I'd love to keep doing work like this, for as long as I can.
Have you ever volunteered in any type of work like this before? Or is this your first exposure?
Minimally, through days of service, and the service learning community was a small taste of that. But I've never been very involved or been able to take charge on any kind of project or anything. It just kind of here's the time and date and show up kind of service.
Right. As most people are.
Yeah.
So you took it one step further, where you said, if I'm going to make a difference and I need to make a difference, I need to take charge.
Yeah.
And you did.
Yeah.
And you said, that's it. I want to do this garden.
Yeah.
And I love that, because and now you are.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So she's impacted you.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
And I'm impacted by my students. And actually, once they
It works
graduate,
both
they
ways.
don't leave the nest. Some of them actually move on my block.
Well, it's funny. We had a cleanup the other day in the community, and one of your former students showed up.
That's right. I love that.
And he connected with me, and he had wanted to do more, and he actually reached out right away. And I love that
great.
too, because being a former educator myself, I know that the impact that I had on my students and the impact my students had on me really made a huge difference. And to see those that stick around, you're doing the right thing.
That.
You know what you're doing, what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I love that too. And geez, we can talk, ladies.
my
we are
gosh.
talkers.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are almost up with our
love
second segment here, and I do too, because there's so much to say.
So much.
Yeah, but
And I'm excited to talk more about our partnership in the garden.
and that's what we're going to do when we come back
great.
from the break. So
Okay.
stick around, everybody. Don't miss our last segment as we talk about the garden, and we have Jocelyn tell us a little bit more about her interest in that as well. So this is Britt Carpenter of Be a Voice on Usla Radio. We'll be right back.
Awesome.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Sometimes the things we do or say can make others feel hurt, excluded, or isolated. Everything you say and do creates an impact.
How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Because of you, someone's entire life can change. You don't have to be a superhero to have a positive impact.
Friends?
Friends.
$150/90.
180/111.
160/110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Welcome back, everybody, to Be a Voice on Usula Radio. This is Britt Carpenter, and thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited. I'm sitting here today with Stephanie Sena. Hey, Stephanie.
Hey, Britt.
Hi, and I'm sitting here with Jocelyn Griffith. Hi, Jocelyn.
Hey.
Hi, thanks so much, ladies, for showing up today. Like I said earlier in the show, showing up is half the battle. You know, that's sort of what gets it started. You know, then from there it snowballs. And I'm a little bummed out that the Phil Collins song in my ear just left me because Another Day in Paradise, one of my favorite songs. And yesterday, all day long, I had Susudio stuck in my head by Genesis.
Funny.
Yeah, so there we are.
Those weird songs in your head.
I know. Now I'm gonna have to go home, and all of a sudden I'm gonna go to Mike and Mechanics, and it'll just be my day will be shot. But anyway, you know, we have been sitting here talking about everything, ranging from you know, people that are privileged to people that aren't privileged to people that, you know, don't know how to connect with each other, to trying to bridge the gaps. And I think that's what the three of us have in common here. We're trying to bridge the gaps out there. And Stephanie, you made a comment in the last segment that you talked about empathy. And I think one of the few things that we don't have anymore in today's society is empathy. And we haven't learned how to make empathy great again. And I think that's where we have to start. So by doing what you're doing, we're making empathy great again. So thank you for that.
I have it in my kitchen. I have a framed picture on the wall with two children who are have their arms around each other, and it says "Make America Kind Again."
Oh my gosh! And it's so funny because I sent a shirt that says "Make Empathy Great Again." That's why I use that. Yeah. So and I also sent a shirt that says "Compassion Matters." You know, so you know, and I think that's important. I think people tend to forget that. You know. And I am one of those persons that every once in a while, like, I tend to forget it myself. Even though I do what I do, I think, you know, we're all human. And, you know, we need to be reeled back in a little bit. So, but, you know, here we are, you know, the Breaking Bread community has, the land bank has, you know, granted land to Surrey HUP to start this Breaking Bread community. And it's a beautiful set of land. You've connected with the neighbors, and you've done it in such a way that's so important for where I'm coming from, because my nonprofit works very closely here in Kensington. I'm on the front lines here, and it's so important. You said it before. We go and we meet them where they're at. We don't try to bring them to us. We got to meet them where they're at. We get out there, you know, we get down and dirty with them. You know, we talk to them like they want to be talked to. You know, we don't sit there, we don't coddle. It's not an, oh, how are you sort of thing.
And we don't exploit their suffering
Never.
either. That's
Never.
so vital, right, Britt?
So important.
Yeah, because there are people who want to go there and take pictures of them and spread the pictures, and, you know, like,
oh, yeah.
We're there. I think that the most important thing is to treat people with dignity and respect that you would want to be treated with, right?
I love it.
And that's part of why I'm so proud to partner with you, Britt, is that I see that we're coming from the same mindset, and not everybody is, you know?
No. And, you know, and I think that's so, you know, so critical for people to realize that there's a huge difference out there between awareness and exploitation. You know, bringing awareness to a subject or to a societal issue doesn't need to be done by the most shocking, traumatic, or the trauma porn pictures and videos that are out there. It needs to be done by showing the human side of things, humanize these societal issues or diseases, as I call them. So, the village is definitely getting ready to start. But one of the things that we're here today for is this community garden, the community healing garden. There's so much trauma that goes right here in the Kensington area, on a daily basis of people who live here, that it's so important they're going to have an outlet. So that's what we're embark on, ladies. We're about to embark on this major project of implementing a community healing garden. And I am so excited. I get up every day wishing it was springtime so that way we can do more, but we're doing a lot right now. That's right. So, Jocelyn, what do you have envisioned for this? What is your vision overall for this community healing garden?
Vision? I really want to bring the community together, especially because there's going to be new people coming into the community. And I could tell already on our cleanup that it was starting to already work, because the neighbors would peek their heads out the window, see what's going on. Then they all gradually came out, and just seeing kids in the playing in the street was really nice, and everyone was talking and joking.
But you hit the nail on the head there. They were a little cautious. They're like, who are these people? Then all of a sudden they started coming out. One came out, and the other's like a domino effect on the inverse, though. They're not falling down. They're all coming out. They're standing up. And were they all accepting right away?
I think some were skeptical. It makes sense. There's a bunch of strangers walking into your neighborhood, carrying a bunch of trash down the street. I would be a little confused and hesitant.
Yeah.
But once they came down and talked to us, they seemed excited.
And how did that make you feel when you connected with them?
It was exciting. It felt like I don't know, we were connecting and making a positive change for these people that really deserve it.
Absolutely, and they do deserve it.
Knowing them. Everyone deserves having a nice garden and being able to go outside and enjoy their neighborhood.
Absolutely. Stepping outside and being able to just sit there for a little bit and just soaking in the environment and the atmosphere around. Yeah. And that's what they did that day. They came out, they were checking it all out. And, there was some resistance. There was a little resistance, but you communicate. You talk to them. You meet them where they're at. And all of a sudden, the light bulb goes on, the smiles go, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're hugging us.
Yeah.
So here's these people who go from peeking out their curtain in their front door to hugging us at the very end of it. Yeah. How did that make you feel then?
It felt great.
Are you doing the right thing?
Yeah.
There you go.
Because people in the community, their input and response is very important, because if we had gone there and they hadn't come out of their doors or they were unhappy with what we were doing, it would mean we weren't making a positive impact, and we were hurting other people.
Love it.
So,
Love it. That's so true. I don't even think about that way. If nobody came out, yes, we would have still done what we were supposed to do, but we wouldn't have really had the impact we were looking to have if people wouldn't have came out and said, hey, what's going on? So, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that. You just made the light bulb go on for me there. And Stephanie, going back, I got to tell you, I am so thankful that that building on Frankfurt Ave did not go through. Yeah. I really am, because there is no way that we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about this. So, you started, you want to put it, in the Breaking Bread community, you're going to put in small homes. You're not changing the physiological, aspect of them. You're not changing the aesthetic of it. You want to make them looking very similar to what the neighborhood is, from what you said. But why the garden part? You could put one or two more homes instead of a garden. Yeah. So why a garden?
Yeah. Well, a few things. I believe that, so basically what we're doing right now is something called infill. So these are houses, there's been a disinvestment from this community. It's a very poor community in Philadelphia. And sometimes houses are very dilapidated and they're torn down. And then what happens is that they're left with these vacant lots. And so in essence, if you're thinking of a block with a lot of row homes, and if you think of the row homes like teeth, there's these missing teeth, right? And so because what we're trying to do is increase the inventory of affordable housing in Philadelphia and make it low barrier, more accessible for people. So we're building these houses in the empty lots. But for us, I feel very strongly that if you're going to really do homeless eradication or prevention attention. You don't just work on the people you get into those homes, but the people on either side of the homes, right? The whole community. You need a buffer, right? So to have strong individuals, you need strong communities. And so that doesn't just include housing people, but it includes caring for the whole community. And how do you do that? You do things like build gardens, community centers, murals, and have people work together on them. You know, so really when I was going out to the neighborhood every day asking, what do you want? They were saying to me, we want gardens, we want murals, we want lights, we want, you know, and I feel like listening to that feedback and input was vital because we have resources, we have partnerships, and we can help realize their dreams and work together on them. And really build a community. And I also think, you know, when I was going out day to day and talking to neighbors, I got a sense from many neighbors that they don't come out of their houses, you know, that there's a fear. They go to work or they go to school and then they come right back into the house. And there's very little interaction or engagement that's going on. And I just feel that, you know, what we need for strong communities is engagement. People need to be connected with each other so that they can that they can organize and maybe then start demanding things from their you know, political city council members. Right. And then also, you know, it helps drive down crime if there's more eyes on the street, if they're outside. So really all of this was very fitting in terms of we're building just a community, not just houses. And then, Britt, I started seeing what you were doing online, and I knew I had been following Philly Unknown for a long time, and we've had many meetings, and I've been just so inspired by you and your work and going out there every day. And you're a lot like me, that you're out there every day, and you're out there when it's uncomfortable and when it's raining and when it's hot and when you feel like crap, and you're just out there every single day. And I see it, and I see who you are, and I know that you're the type of person that I want to partner with. So then I saw you doing this raising resources and money and getting people on board for the community gardens, and I'm paying attention, and I'm like, this is the kind of thing we need to do. We want to partner with someone like this who has a vision and whose worldview is similar to ours and who can really, you know, make it happen. And so when I saw you were looking for land, I thought this is the perfect fit for us. Right. So in partnering with you and having your community healing gardens come in to our community and be part of it, I felt like this is just, you know, you building these strong partnerships between Philly Unknown and between Surrey HUP and the Community Healing Garden and Breaking Bread Village. These collaborations, it really does it takes a village, and we're all stronger together. So I felt like this was the perfect match, and you'd already done so much work prior. You know, you were the one who had this dream and we're out there, you know, writing grants and raising money and getting the resources you need and putting the plans together. So for me, it was a no-brainer, really. It was an easy fit, and I think it's a perfect partnership.
Well, I love it, and thank you. And I think it's important, you know, for me, people always say, why the community garden, Britt? And I think it's important because, you know, I mean, I'm very open, I'm very transparent in everything about my life. I mean, I'm out there because, you know, what you see is what you get. And when I was coming off of the opioids, or I was, you know, trying to, you know, go clean off of opioids, I started a lot of gardening, and I started doing a lot of work in my yard, and I transformed my backyard. I'm in Manayunk, so for what a yard is worth, into a sanctuary, into a place where I was able to go and feel at peace and be able to read, be able to dig, be able to plant something, watch stuff grow, to water it. And before I knew it, like, I was working out back from day to night, and I thought, if I could take all this energy and harness it and put it out there in the community, can you imagine what results we're going to have?
Wow, amazing.
So here we are sitting together with 3 powerful people, and I will say it because we are powerful people, ladies. We really are. And we're about to embark on one of the greatest things that probably Philadelphia has seen in a long time. And Philly, you just wait and see, because you're going to be pleasantly pleased and very shocked.
And we want everyone on board.
And
so
we do.
I don't want them just to be pleased and shocked. I want them to get their gloves on and come
get
work
your
with
butts
us.
out and come out and work with us.
That's
You know,
exactly
there
right.
is so much to do. I mean, we
All
want you to be
hands on
involved,
deck.
all hands on deck. And, you know, you don't, and some people say, well, you know, that's not my thing. But there's other ways you can help. It doesn't have to be coming out and cleaning up. You can, you know, you can do administrative things. You can help do
There's
things like
so many places
raising
of
funds, fundraisers.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell my students this all the time is that, these problems that we're addressing, Britt, in terms of inequity and poverty, wages and reform and prison reform, education and opioid addiction, these problems are so massive and it can be overwhelming. So a couple things I say is, number one, it's important for us to understand that all of these problems are actually connected. That I tell my students to think constellationally and connect the dots amongst these different systems of oppression and exploitation, but also connect the dots between ourselves and our neighbors, right? But also that it can be easy to see all these problems and get overwhelmed and feel hopeless. Like there's nothing I can do because this is just so big and so massive and I'm just going to bury my head in the sand. And I tell my students that, okay, flip it, reframe the narrative. And the flip side of this problem being so all pervasive and overwhelming is that there's so many points of entry to fix things based on your specific interests and talents. So if you like to garden, there's a place for you. If you like to cook, there's a place for you. If you just want to come hang out, if you like to read, let's join a book club and have book clubs down there. If you like to put on plays, let's put on a play. Theater of the oppressed.
Theater in the garden.
Yeah, I love that.
Shakespeare in the park.
If you're an artist, come help us with our murals.
And we're gonna have them.
Absolutely. That if you're a lawyer, we're going to need lawyers. There's so many places that you can jump in and help out. And to me, that's exciting and inspiring. That it means that everybody is needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if we come together, we can really, I think, make a difference.
And it's very interesting you said that because, Jocelyn, you sitting here, you're a living testimony to you decided what you can do. You walked out of class that day and you said, this is where I can fit in.
That's right. Yeah.
This is where I can make an impact.
That's right.
When that light bulb went on, did you just feel like you changed or you transformed a little bit?
Yeah, I was so excited. I was feeling a little pessimistic. The start of the school year, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do this year. And I just got so excited because I knew this year would be so much better than all the other years because I found where I fit and something I'd be really excited to do.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, you are making a huge impact in this world with your students, with your, I think it's important to tell people you are a single parent as well, and you're raising your 2 children, and, and you are working as a professor, and you're running Surrey HUP, and you're doing the village. So,
well, also, I have health complications and $100,000 in medical debt and have had to have some amputations. And I say that because I struggle too. Right. So some people have heard about this project and said, who is this, mainline professor coming from,
ding, ding.
Coming into our community. But I live in this community. I'm actually in Mark Squilla's district. I live in Philadelphia and I struggle to pay my bills. And I am, but I recognize that I have tremendous amount of privilege, right? Because when I fall, as I do often, I have a very strong safety net. And that's the thing is that we, in this country, what we need to do is build strong safety nets, which is what we're doing here in this Port Richmond section in this Breaking Bread community is helping them build a strong safety net.
Oh my gosh, this is a perfect way to go out of our program today because usually I wrap it up by saying, what is it you want to be a voice for? And right there, you want to be a voice for building strong safety nets, to be a support, to have a place where people can come all be accepted together. That's right. And ladies, there is never enough time in 1 hour to talk about what we want to talk about.
Already.
Oh, it is. It was. But Jocelyn, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. I know you were nervous. I appreciate you so much. And Stephanie, just thank you for being you and thank you for believing in me. And, together we're going to make some changes.
I'm excited to work with you,
Me
Britt.
too.
You're an inspiration.
And to everybody else out there, thanks for joining us today. And thanks for always supporting us. And remember, what it is you stand for, be a voice. This is Britt Carpenter with Usula Radio, and have a great day.
Bye.